More than 100 primary and international schools resume half-day in-person classes. 600 new COVID cases in the city as authorities announce vaccine pass arrangements for recovered COVID patients.
Good evening and welcome. A total of 117 primary and international schools in the city resumed half-day in-person classes today. All teachers and students must test negative on a rapid antigen test before heading to school.
Health authorities say 15 teachers and students tested positive today. Meanwhile, some parents refuse to let their children go back to school, saying the epidemic situation is still severe.
After their more than a month-long early summer break, primary school children finally returned to in-person teaching, including these two students. First things first, the rapid antigen test. The father said he is in need of more testing kits and will train the boys do the test themselves. The students finally headed to school after their father signed on their handbooks, proving they had tested negative and had normal body temperatures. And that will be verified by teachers in school. But it wasn't so smooth for another student as there was no signature on his handbook. So his dad had to go to the school just to sign the handbook. On the first day of class resumption, this school arranged several activities to help students get used to the environment. The activities include physical activity and making thank you cards. Meanwhile, in this primary school in Mongkok, students are required to upload a picture of their test result online and take the test disc back to school as proof. Students like this girl who forgot to do the rapid testing will have to do it immediately on the playground. The girl said she was in a rush this morning and will get up earlier tomorrow. School principal Remus Fong said it's more work for parents and students, but believes this will give them most confidence to let their children go back to school. Over 80% of students in this school are double jabbed, but they still need to wear a face mask the whole time during physical education classes.
Hong Kong reported 600 new COVID-19 cases today, including 11 imported infections. There were 17 more COVID-related deaths.
Meanwhile, under the latest vaccine pass arrangements, recovered COVID patients can be exempted from the vaccination requirement for 6 months to enter restaurants and scheduled premises. Jackie Lin with details.
Among the latest cases are 2 primary students. They tested positive from self-diagnoses, which are required in their return to in-person classes today. International schools also found 12 students and a teacher with the virus via the rapid tests. As the vaccine pass scheme is set to enter its second phase in late April, details have been announced for the city's 1.2 million recovered COVID patients on their inoculation requirements. They could input their personal information and month of infection on the government's online vaccination record system, or log into their IM Smart app to obtain a QR code indicating recovery from COVID. The Leave Home Safe app has been updated to recognize that QR code and generate the pass for recovered COVID patients to enter restaurants and other scheduled premises. That pass will expire in 6 months. Those who haven't declared their infection or couldn't receive the code could email or call the government's inquiry hotline. For people unsure if they've been infected, health authorities advise they get the jab.
Some people have told us that they have sort of symptom, but they didn't do any test. They should receive vaccination as those who have never been infected. Even if you've got COVID in the past, you can still receive vaccination safely. But the benefits are far greater than the adverse impacts.
After the transitional period ends, recovered COVID patients could no longer use proof of recovery in paper form in the vaccine pass scheme in July. At that time, those without vaccination, medical exemption, and recovery records will see a full red code on their Leave Home Safe app, barring them from entry to premises. Those whose record expired will see a blue code framed in red. Meanwhile, the 5th quarantine facility in Penny's Bay is now ready. Unlike previously built facilities, there are 1,000 twin bedrooms furnished with bathrooms, a TV, and a wardrobe. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The government's home vaccination services started accepting reservations today. The services will begin next week. Secretary for Civil Service Patrick Nip says the door-to-door inoculation initiative targets the elderly, age 70 or above, or homebound citizens with mobility issues. Reservations could be made online or through the government hotline. Only the Sinovac doses are now available. Authorities will decide whether to offer the choice of the BioNTech vaccine based on demand. Health authorities will reach out to unvaccinated seniors and encourage them to get the jab. So far, 150,000 citizens aged 70 or above have not been vaccinated.
Starting today, people aged 60 or above can acquire free rapid antigen test kits at 680 service locations across the city. Members of the public emptied today's batch in the morning. The 680 service locations include district health centres and their express branches, elderly health centres, district elderly community centres, daycare centres for the elderly, and the hospital authority's Chinese medicine outpatient program. The free test kits are only available to members of these places or those who visited the premises before. Authorities said they will provide flexible assistance to people who fail to meet these criteria. This initiative will continue until the end of May.
The mainland reported more than 21,000 COVID cases, with more than 90% found in hard-hit Shanghai. The city also reported 7 new deaths. The 7 were aged from 60 to 101, making it the second day in a row the city reported fatalities. Shanghai's Municipal Health Commission said none of the dead were vaccinated and they suffered from chronic illnesses. Currently, people living in lockdown areas in the city are required to undergo nucleic acid tests for 3 consecutive days. Wu Qing, a vice mayor of Shanghai, said he hopes residents will support the testing arrangements so that the city can return to normal. Beijing will continue to increase strategic coordination with Moscow, regardless of international volatility. That statement today from the Foreign Ministry in Beijing by Vice Foreign Minister Li Yucheng, who gave the assurance to the Russian ambassador to China on Monday. Also yesterday, Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed that Western sanctions against Russia have failed. Speaking to top government officials by a video link, Putin added that the initiators themselves paid a heavy price, with inflation and unemployment growth and economic dynamics worsening in the U.S. and European countries. Putin then noted substantial inflation figures in Russia. He called on the authorities to help citizens deal with the wave of inflation. Russia also faces capital flight while grappling with a possible debt default. Putin said Russia should use its state budget to support the economy and liquidity. The World Bank expects Russia's economy to shrink by more than 11% this year.
Welcome back to TVB News. A U.S. federal judge struck down a national mask mandate on public transportation, overturning a White House effort to control the spread of COVID-19.
The ruling was met with cheers on some airplanes, but also with concern. Alan Booknell reports.
The major airlines and many of the busiest airports in the U.S. rushed to drop the requirements after the Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, announced it would not enforce the January 2021 security directive that applied to airplanes, airports, taxis, and other mass transport. The ruling still gives the option to keep mask rules in place, so directives could vary from city to city. In her decision, the judge said the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention overstepped its authority in issuing the original health order, on which the TSA directive is based. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the federal agencies are assessing the judge's ruling.
This is obviously a disappointing decision. The CDC continues recommending wearing a mask in public transit. As you know, this just came out this afternoon. So right now, the Department of Homeland Security, who would be implementing, and the CDC are reviewing the decision. And of course, the Department of Justice would make any determinations about litigation.
Last week, U.S. health officials extended the mask mandate until May 3rd, saying they needed time to assess the recent rise in COVID-19 cases. The 7-day average last week was more than 36,000 new infections daily, with 460 daily deaths, the highest number of reported COVID deaths in the world. Industry groups and Republican lawmakers criticized the extension, calling for a permanent end to the mask mandate. The Florida judge's ruling came in a lawsuit filed last year by a group called the Health Freedom Defense Fund. Alan Brooknia, TVB News.
The Biden administration has announced it's barring anti-satellite missile testing by the United States. The White House hopes the move will lead to new norms for military action in space. The U.S. has sharply criticized Russia and China for conducting what it calls reckless anti-satellite missile tests. In November, Russia launched a missile to destroy a defunct Soviet-era satellite, creating more than 1,600 pieces of space debris. Experts say the strike increased risks for U.S. and Russian personnel aboard the International Space Station and China's Tiangong Space Station.
As of today, the United States commits not to conduct destructive, direct ascent, anti-satellite missile testing. Simply put, these tests are dangerous, and we will not conduct them. We are the first nation to make such a commitment, and today, on behalf of the United States of America, I call on all nations to join us.
Back locally, a man found guilty of biting off a former district councillor's ear and wounding a number of people at Taikushing in 2019 was today given a 14.5-year jail term.
Although the defendant claimed to be apolitical, the judge believes he committed the offenses based on his political stance. Caleb Leung reports.
The incident happened in November 2019 when Zhou Chen injured a number of people with a knife outside City Plaza. He also bit off the left ear of former district councillor Andrew Chiu. The court found him guilty of 3 charges of wounding with intent and 1 charge of common assault last year. In mitigation, the defense lawyer said the 52-year-old Chen suffered from psychological distress after his business failed in the U.S. The defendant received treatment at a psychological hospital after he returned to Hong Kong. The defense lawyer added that Chen is an apolitical person and did not participate in the social unrest. And Chen hopes to sincerely apologize to the 4 victims for bringing them unforgettable trauma. In a letter written to the court, Chen's wife noted that her husband has never hurt her or anyone else when he was drunk. But High Court Judge Juliana Barnes questioned the claim, noting that Chen's wife had previously filed a report with the police saying that she woke up to find Chen was holding a knife to her neck. The judge added that Chen has also previously stayed at a psychological hospital for treatment, indicating his violent tendencies. The judge described Chen's act as savage and unbelievable. The victims in the case suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, and Chiu has to put up with the inconvenience of having to wear an artificial ear. As for the defendant's claim to be apolitical, the judge believes Chen committed the offenses based on his political stance. The judge accepted that Chen was under the influence of alcohol, but was not affected by his depression at the time of the incident. With 18 years as the starting point for sentencing, the judge took into account the fact that the defendant was beaten up afterwards and his family was also subject to harassment. The judge reduced the jail term to 14.5 years. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Police say more than 600 teenagers were arrested in drug-related cases last year. That's a 32% rise compared with the previous year's figure. According to the Central Registry of Drug Abuse, about 6,019 people were reported to have taken drugs last year, 243 more than the previous year, and all newly reported drug takers were aged 21 or below. The Narcotics Bureau of the Police Force says young people usually lack self-control and want fast money, so they could be taken advantage of by drug syndicates. Police say drug trafficking is a very serious crime. A social worker says parents should pay attention to whether their children have been talking about 420, which is used to refer to cannabis. He said parents should also be on alert if their children suddenly receive a large amount of cash. At the Geneva International Exhibition of Inventions, a Hong Kong team was awarded a gold medal for using 3D printing technology to help those recovering from breast cancer. Breast cancer is one of the most common forms of cancer in Hong Kong, making up 27% of female cancer diagnoses in 2019. A team from the Hong Kong Research Institute of Textiles and Apparel utilized 3D printing technology to develop tailor-made bras for those recovering from the condition. Their creation was developed at only 10% of the current market cost. Another team from the same company combined 3D printing with textiles to create elastic materials for home appliances at a lower budget. The Hong Kong delegation won a total of 136 awards at the exhibition. That's the news. Thanks for watching.
Good night.